All right. Yeah, I believe we should be good to go here. Let me just check one thing. Okay, yeah, we're good. So what's up, everybody? We're back again for another week of UFC. Got a pretty loaded card this week. Obviously, the title fight, but the rest of the card is also pretty good. It should be pretty entertaining. As always, we will start with the recap of what we had last week. Went 4-2 overall on 6 picks. Hit Jimmy Crute as a big favorite. Jessica Andrade's, which was, in my opinion, a very easy pick to get at pretty good value. In the main event, we had Ortega at plus 160, and we also had the over 2.5 rounds in that fight for minus 105. It went to a decision. If you got it at over 3.5 and anything else like that, you got better odds. Good for you. 2 losses were Thomas Almeida and Claudio Silva. Went for an underdog there. Didn't work out. Almeida kind of might have to just be out on him for the future. But 4-2 overall. If you just put 1 unit on all of those, you made out plus 1.54 units. So pretty good day there. Can't complain. Obviously could have been better, but you'll take any day that you made some money. And we can get straight into the main card here. I do have 2 picks on the undercard at the end of the show. But for now, first fight of the main card. You see in the caption here, I say this is the new Khabib and Tony Ferguson fight. Don't want to get that misconstrued at all. I'm not saying that these guys are talented like that. Their fight styles are like that. I'm just saying this fight has been booked so many damn times that it just keeps getting canceled. Seems like we're actually going to have it this time. Both guys made weight, barring a last-second change, which I wouldn't put past, considering the history here. We should finally get it. We have already seen this fight once. This is also something that I've already covered, so a lot of this is going to be repetitive from the last time that I thought this fight was going to happen. But the history behind this is a rematch. It's a rematch that I don't think people really need. But at this point, I'm kind of surprised that they're so passionate about making this fight happen, as there's really no implications in the division or anything like that. But it was such a weird fight the first time around that we're going to get to see it again. For people that don't know, Cutelaba got hit and went with the rope-a-dope approach, faked being hurt, was wobbling around. Bad game plan to begin with, but whatever. He's a fighter that does stuff like that. But so yeah, he pretended to be hurt, wobbling around. The ref thought that he was out on his feet, called the fight, and then immediately stopped the act and was perfectly fine to keep going. But that's part of the risk you take when you take an approach like that. But it was a weird fight, so weird that we're going to see it again. In terms of how these guys actually do in the octagon, Ankalaev has 8 knockouts, 6 decision wins. His only losses to Paul Craig by submission, who people that know, Paul Craig may be one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. Probably top 5 in submission artists, honestly. He's a very, very good grappler. So I don't put too much into that loss there. Cutelaba on the other side is pretty much, I wouldn't say strictly a knockout artist, but that's kind of his thing. In his 15 wins, 12 by knockout, 2 submissions, 1 decision. I will say he has fought better competition than Ankalaev has, but he kind of did lose those fights. He fought Cannonier, who we'll talk about later on the card. Also fought Glover Teixeira. Lost both of those, but he was kind of just thrown into a big fight with a big uptick in competition, excuse me. Other than that, he has a couple of decent wins here and there, but nothing really too impressive. Another thing about Cutelaba, super fun to watch. I've kind of hinted at it already. He does some weird things that makes his fights pretty exciting. He's painted himself green for weigh-ins. In the first fight, what kind of started this bad blood, when he got introduced into the octagon, did the slit the throat and just walked straight into Ankalaev, and they had I don't even know if you want to call it a dust-up, but a little bit of a confrontation in the ring before the fight. But once the bell rings and the fight actually starts, kind of limited in his approach. Kind of just goes for the big looping overhand punches, looking for a knockout. Doesn't really set them up with the jab or leg kicks or anything like that. But he does have the heavy hands to make it work. I don't think that's a recipe that can get you to the top of a division, but can definitely beat most guys in the UFC just because all you have to do is land one shot. So Ankalaev, on the other hand, he does have some power to himself too, not as much as Cutelaba, but he's a more polished striker, cleaner, more combos, sets things up better, quicker hands, and honestly, just a smarter fighter. So honestly, the way this fight, how is it going to play out? I think both guys look for a knockout, but in those times where Cutelaba throws those big looping overhands, it's going to create openings, which Ankalaev took advantage of in the first fight, and albeit in a limited time frame. But I think he does it again here. I'm going to go with him just straight up minus 310 on the money line. I will say there is some enticing prop bets. Ankalaev by knockout is minus 105, but I don't know how confident I am because I could just see him getting in, landing a couple shots, scoring points, winning rounds, and just getting out without being too risky because obviously Cutelaba does have that knockout power. But I think this is a good parlay pick. Just go minus 310. I wouldn't say this is something you might want to just bet straight up, as obviously it's not great odds to get any money back. But if you do want to bet this fight and get some good value, I think Ankalaev by knockout at minus 105 has some good value. But for all we know, this fight might not happen for what seems like an 8th time. But yeah, that's what I got to say about that one. We can go into the next fight. A couple of women, Lauren Murphy, 13-4 in her career, minus 210 favorite, going up against Lilia Shakarova, who is 8-1, coming back at plus 175 as an underdog. Murphy's a pretty good fighter. I got to give her credit. She's one of the few women's fighters who actually actively looks and succeeds in getting knockout wins. 8 of her wins by knockout, the other 5 by decision. She has no submission wins. She's never been finished. All of her fights that she doesn't win, she loses them all by decision. And Shakarova making her UFC debut. She's got 3 knockout wins, 1 submission, 4 decisions, more of your typical UFC women's fighter, I'd say. But I will say one thing, 2 of her last 3 fights are by knockout. And, I mean, let's be real, she hasn't fought literally anyone that anyone's heard of unless you pay attention to the smaller leagues because that's where she's coming from. But Murphy, she's on a 3-fight win streak. She most recently beat Andrea Lee and Roxanne Modafferi. 2 respectable wins in my eyes. And, I don't know. Like I said, Shakarova just hasn't beat anybody that carries any name value. So I think this fight's going to play out mainly on the feet. Both tend to strike, very willing to stand and trade, Murphy especially. I do not, however, think that this fight will end early, as neither of these two have ever been finished. I think it's going to be a decision. But unfortunately, it's going to be a boring pick for this one. But I think Murphy minus 210 doesn't have great value, but I think that's the best bet for the fight. You can look at Murphy minus 120 for decision. That might have a little bit more value. And while I do think that it's going to go to a decision, I can't say I'm super confident, as like I said, Murphy does have 8 knockout wins. But really, it's just a huge step up in competition for Shakarova. So maybe she does get knocked out. I don't know. I could talk myself in and out of it both ways. But one thing that stays the same is I do think Lauren Murphy wins this fight. So I'm going with her minus 210. And we can move straight on to actually a fight that I'm looking forward to see. Phil Hawes, he is 8-2 in his career, minus 240, minus 240 favorite. He's coming off a big knockout win on Dana White's Contender Series. And he's going up against Jacob Malkoun, undefeated, albeit just 4 fights, 4-0, plus 200 underdog. Like I said, Hawes is making his UFC debut. Coming off Contender Series. He has now rattled off 4 straight first-round finishes. None of his fights, win or losses, have ever seen a decision. He's one of those guys that's going to go out there, try to knock you out, and willing to take some punches too to try to get his off. Malkoun also making his UFC debut. There's not a lot of tape on him, so I got to be honest, I really don't know much about Malkoun. I haven't seen him fight. So I don't really know too much to say about this. He's got 2 knockout wins, 2 decision wins. Hasn't fought anybody that good. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't happen often where I've never heard of these guys, but Malkoun is one of them. But I have seen Hawes fight, and he's looked very impressive to me. The fight odds show that Vegas doesn't think that this fight's going to reach a decision, and I don't either, based on from what I've seen and based on the numbers. Hawes has serious power. He seems pretty efficient in his striking. So to finally get some value in one of these picks, I'm going to go with Phil Hawes to win by knockout at plus 100. Get it at even money. It's my best bet for the fight. It just seems like Hawes has no interest in taking a fight to a decision either way. He's going to go out there, get the knockout, or die trying. So I think he gets the job done. And, yeah, I mean, these guys are probably going to strike. So I like Hawes plus 100 by knockout. That's my best bet for that fight. And moving along pretty quickly here, but we can get straight into the next fight. And this is where the card gets really good. There's back-to-back really good fights. This one, Alexander Volkov, 31-8, experienced veteran, always been one of the contenders in this division. He's a minus 175 favorite, and he will be fighting Walt Harris, 13-8 in his career, plus 155 underdog. And I don't know. I got a lot to say about this fight. I don't know how I really want to break it down, but I'll get my pick straight out there. Volkov should have no problem winning this fight. And honestly, I don't know if I agree with the line. I've been saying this for a while. It seems like every week there's one fight where the line doesn't make sense, and this is my one for this week. Although not as confident as some of the other ones, because Walt Harris, as we'll get to, got some crazy power, got that one-punch knockout capabilities. So, yeah, I guess we can start with Walt Harris. Basically, when he goes out there, you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to go out there and try to knock someone out. That's literally his only strategy. He's 13-8. All 13 of his wins are by knockout. It's really all the man does. He did pick up some wins over an aging Alexei Oleinik, also Sergey Spivak. Got him a shot against Overeem. Got knocked out in that one, but Overeem, one of the best. So don't put too much on that loss. But really what I'm trying to get at here is Walt Harris has one thing in mind when he steps into the octagon, and it's just knock the other person out. He has no other strategy, like I've said. So that's Walt Harris. And now you look at Volkov on the other side. He had a great run. He beat Roy Nelson, who, whatever, might not respect him too much. Stefan Struve, might not respect him too much. I'll talk about him later, too, as he's on the undercard. Got a pick in that fight. But also beat Fabricio Verdum leading up to the Derrick Lewis fight. And only the Verdum fight impresses me, but I kind of want to talk more about the Derrick Lewis fight. I don't know if people remember it. Basically, Volkov dominated 14 minutes and 50 seconds of the fight. Derrick Lewis wasn't landing anything. It was a 3-round fight. So with 10 seconds left, Derrick Lewis landed one big overhand, knocked him out. Kind of hurt Volkov's push, as he was actually relatively close to getting a title shot, I think. But yeah, he was dominating that fight for 14 minutes, 50 seconds, and then got slept in the final 10. After that, he beats Greg Hardy and then loses to Curtis Blades, who, in my opinion, Curtis Blades is right behind Stipe and Francis in terms of the heavyweights. So I think that's a fight he should have lost. I'm not going to put too much on that. But basically what I'm trying to lay out here is that Volkov has fought a handful of guys that are strictly knockouts. They're strictly look for knockouts, excuse me. Derrick Lewis, yeah, he lost the fight, but he looked so good in it. He just slipped up for 1 second and got caught. After that, he had Greg Hardy, and he dominated that fight. It was a boring fight to watch, but he dominated Greg Hardy. And now he has Walt Harris, who's kind of on the same line as Derrick Lewis and Greg Hardy. I'd probably put him in the middle in terms of talent between the two. But basically, I'm just saying we've seen this fight stylistically in just different names. So I don't know. I just think Volkov, he's looked good in what would it be, 29 minutes and 50 seconds out of a possible 30 minutes against those two power punchers. And I think he comes out and does what he does, puts on a clinic. just lands his punches. I don't think he's going to finish it, as a lot of his fights have been going to a decision recently. And that's why I think Volkov at -175 is my best bet for the fight. I really think he is going to win. He's shown that he can deal with power punchers. He's smart. He's polished. He's a true MMA fighter, basically. While Walt Harris kind of just a knockout or bust guy. So Volkov -175, best bet of the fight. Maybe even the best bet of the night, honestly. But one thing I'm also going to play here is Volkov by decision at +240 because, like I've said, we've seen this fight play out twice, and he's looked dominant in both of them. So that's my Volkov pick. And now we can get into the co-main event. Great fight. Another one that I'm really looking forward to. It's Jared Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. It's a pick 'em -110. I don't know if I agree with that. I'll get to it, but one thing can't argue with. It's a great co-main. Winner could very likely be the next in line for a middleweight title shot against Adesanya. I will say Cannonier is probably the one that has the fans behind him because it pretty much seems like Izzy's all but cleared out the division already, which is just crazy to think about. Seems like Cannonier might be one of the last ones left. But yeah, let's talk about Cannonier. Just the fact that he's in middleweight is wild. Usually most guys go up in weight class as their careers go on. Cannonier kind of an outlier there. He started out in heavyweight, then went to light heavyweight, and now is down in middleweight. He's actually one of 3 people in UFC history to get a knockout at 3 different divisions. McGregor is one of them, and I'm blanking on the other, but it's only 3 people have done it. He's one of them. So, I mean, that's impressive in its own right. He kind of got this hype based off back-to-back wins over Anderson Silva with some nasty leg kicks and then knocking out Jack Hermanson. But also should be noted that he has lost to Dom Reyes and Jan Blachowicz in the last couple of years. Those are his 2 most recent losses. So basically, he beats the guys that he should beat and then kind of loses against the top of the division. That's kind of been Cannonier's, his career path right now. So Whittaker on the other side, making a quick turnaround after beating Darren Till only a couple months ago. But before that, he obviously lost the belt to Izzy. But he had beaten Yoel Romero twice, Jacare Souza, and Derrick Brunson. So he was on a pretty impressive run going into that Izzy fight. And that's where I think I can kind of go out and say I do think Whittaker is the second best middleweight behind Izzy. Honestly, Whittaker was running through the division before he had to meet up with him. So while Whittaker was beating the top guys in the division, Cannonier was losing to him. So that's why I'm going to be going with Whittaker at -110 here. But in terms of fight styles, both of these guys do like to strike. They're very willing to strike. Whittaker does have some more grappling and clinch abilities, but doesn't really tend to use them unless he needs to. Cannonier also has them, but less so. So regardless of any of that, I'd be very surprised if this fight plays out anywhere but on the feet. And that's where I just think Robert Whittaker wins this fight. I think people are putting too much on a loss against Izzy, which is nothing to be ashamed of. So really Whittaker, just more proven against the top talent. I will say the only thing that worries me here is the fact that it's a 3-round fight, and Whittaker hasn't been in a 3-round fight in 3 years. He's been strictly 5-rounders as he was making his push towards the title and then defending it, obviously. But I'm just hoping that he doesn't start too slow. It's a whole different ball game in a 3-round fight than a 5 and 3 in a 3-round fight. You can't afford to lose any rounds in a 5. You can throw away the first to try to feel the guy out, but you can't really do that here. But he's smart. He knows that. He's been through this before. So I will say that's the one thing that worries me, but I don't think it'll happen. So Whittaker -110 is my pick for this fight. He's been there. He's done that. He looked really good in the Till fight. So, and actually more so on Whittaker, his only loss since February of 2014 is that Izzy fight. So he's been on a hell of a run. I just can't go against him here, especially given the odds at -110. I think that's incredible value. So Whittaker's just more proven. I've seen it. I can trust him. Cannonier, I don't know if I can say the same. So that's my pick there. And then finally, we can get into the main event, the lightweight championship fight. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaichy. honestly, maybe the best fight that we can have right now, other than getting Conor or John Jones back. I think this is an absolute crazy fight. I'm glad we get to see it. It's unfortunately we can't see Khabib and Tony, as it's been booked, 5 or 6 times it gets canceled. And then obviously Tony and Gaichy fought last, and Gaichy beat him to get here. But regardless, here we are. It's the main event. I don't even really know what I need to say about Khabib. I think everyone watching this probably knows about him, but maybe not. So just in case you don't, Khabib, arguably the most dominant fighter in the sport right now. In my opinion, he's the greatest lightweight of all time. And I think there's a real conversation to be had that he's top 5 all-time pound for pound. You just don't see guys this dominant in a division. So I don't know. That's a conversation for a different day. But I'm just trying to put the point across that he is this good. Obviously, he's 28-0. He's undefeated. He had wins over RDA, Michael Johnson, Edson Barbosa, Ali Quinta, and then most recently, there's 2 big ones and title defenses, Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. And he's been so dominant in each of these fights. And it's just, I don't know. I could talk about Khabib forever, but the only thing you really need to know is that I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure this is a real fact, is that in all of his fights in MMA, he's only lost 1 single round in his career on the judges' scorecards, and I think that was a 1 round to McGregor. I think it was the 2nd round or something like that, maybe. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. He's only lost 1 round on judges' scorecards in his entire career. I mean, this guy is just dominant. His accolades I could go through forever. Breakthrough fighter of the year, comeback fighter of the year, fighter of the year. He has the most takedowns in a UFC fight ever. He had 21 in a 3-round fight, which is just ridiculous to think about. Multiple time Sambo world champ, so many other championships that I just don't even really need to get into, just to put the image in your mind that this guy is one of the best in the world, if not the best right now. Yeah, I don't know. He's got 8 knockouts, 10 submissions, 10 decisions. The dude can do it all. He doesn't go out there. He's not a one-trick pony. He takes what the fight gives him, and usually looks pretty good doing it. So that's enough on Khabib. I don't really – there's so much more I could say, but I think that paints the picture pretty well. But on the other side, Gaichy, don't want to disrespect him. He's very accomplished too. He's a super exciting fighter. He's 22-2, obviously. 19 knockouts. He's got 5 fight of the nights, 4 performance bonuses. And actually, he has 7 UFC fights, and he's won a bonus in all 7 of those fights. That's a UFC record in its own right, and he's still going. I imagine that this will probably be fight of the night too, so probably extend that to 8. But he also has wins over Michael Johnson, Edson Barbosa, Cowboy Cerrone, and then most recently Tony Ferguson. And his only losses in his career are to Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, 2 very respected fighters. So in terms of the fight itself, on the outside looking in, stylistically, it seems like a terrible matchup for Gaichy. Primarily a striker, loves to sit there and throw. He's very good at it. And then he's going up against the best and most dominant grappler in the world. So I don't know. On the outside, it looks like it should be pretty heavily favored in Khabib, on Khabib's side, which the line shows. But one thing that keeps getting brought up is Gaichy claiming he has this really good wrestling. I know he wrestled in college and everything like that in high school, but we haven't seen him wrestle in the UFC. So he can talk all he wants about his abilities as a wrestler and as a grappler, but we haven't seen it. So I don't see how I can put any value into that. But I fully anticipate that Khabib going to be able to take this fight to the ground. The amount of times that Khabib gets guys against the fence and gets them on the ground and just rides out a couple minutes. Another thing about him, when his riding time is not just just blank riding time. He's working the whole time. I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge Khabib fan. I love watching him work. But like I'm saying, fully anticipate that he gets this fight to the ground pretty much whenever he wants. But if the fight stays on the feet for a while, I wouldn't even say Khabib is that far out of it. I know he gets clowned a lot for his striking abilities, but people tend to forget that he dropped McGregor, who's viewed as one of the best strikers in UFC history, Khabib dropped McGregor with an overhand right. So this dude can punch. I mean, he's got striking skills. No one wants to give him credit for it, but I will. But yeah, basically the reason why he can strike and the reason he's getting better at it, he definitely started off pretty limited, but he uses his grappling to set up the striking, which sounds weird, but a good example is that knockdown of McGregor. He dropped his hands to fake shooting for a takedown, which made McGregor drop his hands to try to defend it, and then quickly overhand right, catches him by surprise, dropped him. So basically just when you're fighting Khabib, you have to be so aware of his skills. You're basically doing whatever you can to keep the fight standing. And when you do that, you open up holes for him to land some big shots, which we've seen that he can do. So yeah, I mean, it's just everything around Khabib does based off his grappling. Don't get me wrong. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes in there and gets 18 minutes of riding time over the 5 rounds. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. He's this good. But maybe I'm not giving enough respect to Gaichy. We'll see what happens. But each of Gaethje's last 11 fights have ended by knockout. Khabib more here and there with his finishes. Like I said, he takes what he's given. But pretty much one thing I always talk about is path to victory. And like every opponent Khabib has, he's just so dominant that the only real chance you have to beat him is to lock in some sort of guillotine or something while he's shooting and just lock that in immediately and get him, or get the flash knockdown, ground and pound, or just get a straight up flash knockout. You're pretty much just not going to be able to win 3 out of 5 rounds against a guy like this unless you have perfect takedown defense and fight an absolutely perfect fight. And even then, I don't know if that's going to be enough. So basically, you need to finish him to beat him. He's just not a guy that's going to lose a decision unless he gasses out, which we haven't seen yet. So I don't know. It is possible that Gaethje does land the big shot. Of course, it always is. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And like I'm saying, going back to those paths to victory, Khabib can do everything. He can knock you out. He can ground and pound you, submissions, point fight. He can do it all. And like I said, Gaethje kind of just needs to lock in something quick or get a flash knockout. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Khabib's just different, man. He's just built entirely different. You've seen the videos of him training, leg sweeping bears, swimming in whitewater rapids. I mean, it's different for guys like Khabib. So in terms of my bet, you can probably tell which way I'm going here. Khabib minus 310, best bet for the fight. But I would also look into some certain prop bets, like over 2.5 rounds is at minus 135. Could very much see this going to a decision. So over 2.5 rounds, minus 135. And like I said, I can see it going to decision. So Khabib by decision at plus 275, I think has a lot of value. But as always with a fight like this, if you don't want to bet on it, I totally understand. This is one of those fights that you kind of just want to sit back and enjoy. But for people that do want some picks, as I'm sure that's probably why you're here, Khabib by decision at plus 275 has a ton of value. I like that. But over 2.5 rounds, minus 135, also pretty good. So yeah, that is the main card broken down. Like I said, I do have a couple of undercard picks. I'm not going to go too deep into these, but Tai Tuivasa is at a pick'em with Stefan Struve, which is absurd to me. I think Stefan Struve is one of the worst fighters in UFC history. I get it. He's the lineal champ. You can tell me all this stuff, but it's just the fact that he's 7 feet tall. It's the only reason why this dude has a career. And now he's old. I don't respect Stefan Struve as a fighter. Tuivasa, I think, is kind of mid, but I think he can do enough to win this one. So minus 110 gives very good value on Tuivasa. And then the second undercard pick and then the last pick for this show is the Unjung by knockout, plus 115 versus Smiling Sam Alvey. Don't get me wrong, Sam Alvey, super likable guy. Just not sure that he's really has anything left in the tank. And the Unjung, huge favorite. I think he can get a finish. Alvey's been knocked out a couple times in his most recent fights. So the Unjung by knockout, plus 115. I think that's got a lot of value too. And so yeah, that's it all. That's all of it. It's a hell of a card. I'm super excited for it. But yeah, with everything being said, I'll let you guys go. I'll be back Tuesday to do some NCAA picks. Thursday again for NFL. And then obviously I'll be back again next week at this time to do the next week's UFC show. But yeah, good luck to everybody on their bets this weekend. College football, the Big Ten is back. Obviously, as you can see by my shirt, I'm looking forward to the Big Ten being back. And then plus you got a good weekend of NFL. So a lot of bets to be made. Good luck with everyone. Hopefully you guys make some money. Hopefully these picks here help you make some money. And with that being said, I'll see you guys.